So at the end of January, Attorney General Pam Bondi demanded the voter rolls and medical records for Minnesota in return for withdrawing ICE from the state. And then at the start of February, Trump called for the Republican Party to nationalize voting in the US, raising new worries about his efforts to involve the US and the federal government in election matters. And basically during this interview, and it was kind of an extended monologue, Trump called for Republican officials to take over voting procedures in 15 states, although he didn't name which states they are. And then to kind of compound on this, a couple of weeks later, so actually on Valentine's Day, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem suggested that her department has a broad role in election security and claimed that she has the authority to identify vulnerabilities in the election system and implement mitigation measures to make sure local and state elections are run correctly. So this is all kind of leading up to being really quite worried about quite what is planned for the midterms. There have also been quite upfront ways of trying to restrict who can actually go and vote in the election. So Steve Bannon, the former White House strategist and right-wing podcast host, said that he wants to see immigration agents at the polls in the midterms in November, which is likely to suppress the votes in cities which tend to vote Democrat. Now, while Bannon has no formal power, he is a really influential figure on the far right and is closely tied in with the Trump administration. And then in February, House Republicans have kind of rushed to approve legislation that would impose strict new proof of citizenship requirements ahead of the midterms. This is called the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility, or the SAVE Act, which would require Americans to prove their citizenship status when they register to vote. So mostly through either a valid US passport or birth certificate. Now, this may seem quite normal, but about 10% of Americans don't have that paperwork proving they're citizens. And this act could prevent millions of Americans who have the right to vote from voting. And then the next day, in a series of social media posts, Trump attacked the Democrats for opposing the SAVE Act. And he basically spread again the false information about voter fraud and then said there will be voter ID for the midterms, whether approved by Congress or not.